all the activity in Tennessee yesterday, and then throughout the night as I was watching the coverage. And it's funny how this state house expulsion, the news of what was going on in the state house, trumped just about everything. It trumped Trump. And we had a bad week. We started off with a bad week with Trump getting indicted. I mean, it was bad for just, the overall sense of our democracy. But it was really bad when you actually saw in action a Democratic, or rather a Republican supermajority, essentially silence and crush any kind of opposition. It was so undemocratic in Tennessee. And if you caught show 496 yesterday, well, you know that I began talking about that, and I began talking about all the other stuff that we'll talk about today as well, because Clarence Thomas has come up with some kind of an excuse. We'll mention that. But the chief thing that I was wondering all night, well, it didn't take me that long to figure it out, but Justin Jones, is he or isn't he Filipino? And it didn't take really much. It's just that it's significant that people began to talk about him as an Asian American, as a Filipino American. They began to see him. I mean, the Washington Post said Justin Jones, who is a black and Filipino, or of black and Filipino descent. That was the first mainstream notice I saw. And then I saw Alex Wagner on MSNBC, who rarely, well, look, what people do is their own choice. But she doesn't really acknowledge that all that much that she's Asian American. I guess she's very Obama-like in that way. But I believe her mother is from is Burmese. And she, I'm sure, because a writer saw it first in the Washington Post, noted that, in fact, Justin Jones is black and Filipino. So I thought, if you were an Asian American paying any attention to it yesterday, and there were a number, sure, but I know even some politically astute Asian Americans may have felt like, oh, it's Holy Week, it's Easter Thursday. I know there's a protest. I'm going to take a break. We got legislators who are protesting, and it was not apparent that this was an Asian American story. But in fact, Tennessee, well, in the broad sense of things, it's an Asian American story, because what happened in Tennessee could happen anywhere in this country. A supermajority in red states quashing the voices and the hopes and desires and optimism of a minority. That can happen anywhere. So it's Asian American, but it really is Asian American when you realize that Justin Jones is in fact Filipino American. I mean, he's half black, he's half Filipino, and he acknowledges his Filipino-ness in his campaign literature. I don't know if any Filipinos in Tennessee really acknowledge his Filipino-ness. They know, but everyone says he's black. And actually, in the stories that I've seen, I know one of the people that he went to about 5 years ago, Lenny Strobel, who did a piece in the Philippine media saying, yeah, Justin Jones wanted to know about his Filipino side. And, she connected him with people in the Filipino black communities, because there's a large number of Filipinos who, have African-American family members, my family included. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago that Justin Jones came out and said, yeah, I'm embracing my Filipino-ness. I'm embracing my blackness after growing up in Oakland and going to just going through public schools in the East Bay. His mother, a nurse. Actually, Justin Jones, just 27. He could be my kid, right? very eloquent, very. I mean, he acknowledges that he got his activist bent from both his grandmothers. On his Lola, on his Filipino side, Tessie was her name, and his Lola on his black side, Harriet was her name, and that's what we saw on display yesterday. So check out my column on the ALDEF blog, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, and okay, now I understand there is no sound. There has to be sound. Hold on a second. I think there's sound. I'm doing this because someone that says no sound. If you are listening to this and say there's no sound, please tell me that there's sound. No? I think there should be sound now. Okay, some people hear me. All right, great. Thank you very much. So I want to bring up the man who was at the forefront of Asian American, Filipino American studies, and he hears me. so I am going to bring him up now to talk about Justin Jones, talk about Tennessee. We'll talk about Trump and the indictment, but I really think that Tennessee trumps Trump, don't you think, Dan?
Uh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I guess I would agree. I would agree.
it's larger, but it's still important. But let's talk about
Well, it's larger because there are other states that are similarly disposed
as Tennessee.
as
Yeah,
Tennessee.
yeah,
They have overwhelming Republican control of their state legislature in both houses, upper and lower. Many of them also retain Republican governors, and so they're red states through and through,
right.
dark red, as we might say. And they're doing the same kind of legislation.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go see Matt Nashville sometime and hang out, but not now.
Well,
And I also just disposed of 2 bottles of Tennessee-based whiskey,
oh
so
well. See now,
without drinking it, I drained that sucker.
you're a purist. I have to admit that when I found out about what was going on in general in Tennessee, it my heart sank because I have a soft spot in my heart for Tennessee. I have always, the last 50 years, I've had a soft spot in my heart for Tennessee. And first it was Memphis, and then it was Nashville, and then now you can have them both. And after what happened yesterday, now let's talk about Justin Jones because
Well, I like the cities. I
oh
like
yeah,
the cities. It's just that you can't be you can't you're not safe if you're traveling around. I mean, it's sort of like Texas, right? You want to hang out in Dallas, that's fine. You want to hang out in Austin, that's fine. You want to hang out in Houston, but if you start cruising, around the countryside and past the
yeah.
burbs, there's possibilities that you could meet with
Well,
harm.
it's more like that. If you feel like the the fear of Asian American violence has subsided because mask wearing is out and the fear of the pandemic is gone. Well, I I think when you see something like what happened yesterday, you see the lingering virus politically, and you're right. I mean, how can you assure that you're safe if you are in the minority, if you have a supermajority acting this way toward elected officials?
Yeah, yeah. The problem is more like a cancer than a virus, and it
A virus could kill too,
reoccurs.
but a cancer, yes, a cancer is,
It's a
yeah,
cancer, and it can be dealt with through a variety of different therapies, but it can also
yeah,
reoccur, and its reoccurrence can often be even more potentially deadly than its original identification as a health
yeah.
issue. And that's what we have in American society. This is a recurring situation where hatred, racial hatred, racially motivated hatred, and what I call white desperation, right, rises to the surface, and it results in not only political action of the sort that we see in Tennessee, but it encourages
Yeah.
violence.
Yeah. I didn't initially want to go straight to going back to civil rights and going back to the 60s, but why not? I mean, that it's there. I mean, it's not even a reach to say that to see what happened yesterday is a new generation going through all the things that John Lewis went through in Georgia, all the things that civil rights activists went through in Texas, Tennessee, the heart and home of the Klan. It was that it was those two activists or three activists who stepped forward on the floor of the House, the State House, that brought out that kind of reaction, and it's real because it never went away.
Sure, the legislature, I believe, is at least that house is 75 to 25. 75 members are Republicans.
Super majority.
So they have successfully, yeah. And I've seen a number of conservative, true conservative, traditionally conservative members of the Republican Party, and also former members, people who have left the party, state that as recently as 12 years ago, the legislature was near half half.
Yeah.
And earlier than that, in the preceding presidential administrations, there had been several senators and members of Congress who were rather centrist and who stepped across the aisle or stood in the aisle and conducted themselves in a civil
Yeah.
manner and did true bipartisan legislation with the Democrats. And so, in less than 12 years, we've gotten to this point. And the method, the primary method, was their typical and primary
Yeah.
method is to rig the
Yeah.
maps
Oh yeah,
uh,
gerrymandering.
on,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
gerrymandering, and that method was sanctioned by recent Supreme Court
Right.
decisions.
And so you see how the politics has been working for the right, and all of this now has only been enlivened really because we had a new president in 2016, voted in 2017, who changed everything, changed the norms. Because I think you would have seen the kind of civility that you mentioned, if we hadn't had, the President 45. But because we did, and because all the norms of civility, all the norms of what is considered polite politics has changed. Now it's a dogfight. Now it's really a dogfight. And the dogs who are in charge will lord it over and bully the small fry. I mean, that's what we saw with the super majority in Tennessee yesterday. So I think,
Uh, Also, the behavior, particularly of the speaker,
yeah,
was truly reminiscent of the 1950s.
yeah, it was a kind of a white supremacist kind of, this is the club, this is how we define things here. And if you read my column in the Aldif blog, I talked about the Asian American moment that I defined as the Asian American moment, which is, here's Justin Jones, who is half Filipino, and he's being berated by a South Asian, an Indian Republican. His name is Doc Kumar. Doc is his nickname. 75-year-old doctor, retired doctor. apparently an excellent gastroenterologist. So if you need a colonoscopy, I guess he's the guy. Or you need gallbladder surgery, he's the guy. But he said words to the effect that, look, you wouldn't be facing expulsion, young man, if you didn't just play the game and assimilate. He used those terms.
Yes.
And I was just tooling around reading. I actually was catching it on a newspaper website, and I had the sound down, and I only caught Kumar when he was in polite mode saying, I wish you the best, but screw you, I'm voting against you, right? I'm not gonna vote to save your job. I'm a Republican. I'm gonna expel you. I mean, he said, look, you had a chance. Why don't you just fit in? And Justin Jones's response, as he reiterated what he was listening to, was, oh my God, you're telling me that the only way to act is to be, he,
Complicit with
right,
racism.
right. He called the guy. He called the guy out.
Complicit with crazy gun
Yeah.
policy.
He said, he says, it's very disappointing to hear, my friend. He was talking to Kumar. What I told you was what you just exhibited. As the only member of their caucus who is not a member of the Caucasian persuasion, I said that you put a brown face on white supremacy.
Oh,
That
that's right on the
yeah,
money.
I mean, that's what Justin Jones said to Dr. Kumar, who, get this, I mean, Sabi Doc Kumar, 75-year-old retired Indian gallbladder specialist in the State House since 2015. He was born under the British Raj. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah, that's right. 75.
right.
Yeah, that
And
would be right.
immigrated in 1970 to Florida, then found his way to Tennessee, has been serving since 2015. And this is what I pointed out in my column, the generational divide, not just ethnic, but the generational divide in the AAPI community. And, it was just so stark. Here's Justin Jones, biracial, Filipino and black, not just Filipino, black. And here is Kumar saying, hey, you wouldn't be facing expulsion if you just got along. He said, hey, I haven't heard a slur here. And then Jones corrected him saying, hey, what do you mean? Just the other day, they're talking about bringing back lynching in the house here. What do you mean there's no slurs here?
Right.
I just think what Kumar represents is this attitude, and you see it in other Republican Asian Americans, whatever stripe, Chinese, Filipino, South Asian, Indian. They feel like if you get along, things will fall into place, you'll be accepted, and you'll fit in. And here's what Jones said to that. He says, I don't want acceptance from you. I want acceptance from the people of my district. I don't want approval from you. I don't want approval from the full house, from the members here. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make change for my community.
Well,
That,
and the other gentleman did
yeah,
as well.
Justin Pearson. I don't want to take away.
Pearson was just as
I don't want to
good.
take away anything from Justin Pearson. It's just that, I'm writing primarily for an Asian American audience, and I wanted to point out, that, well, first of all, Justin Jones was first. He was the first one. The first one
Yes.
who was expelled. And
Yes.
there was they debated him alone for an hour. And then they said how ridiculous this was, call for the question. And then people got mad saying, hey, call for the question? This guy's an elected member to the House representing 70,000, and you're going to let 75 people, take away.
What if they were going to consider expulsion? there should have been a time period,
Mm,
okay, when whatever committees they have
mm.
that deal with such issues, ethics committees,
There should have been something. I
uh,
mean,
or
yeah,
that, yeah, they should have come down with a statement suggesting
yeah,
expulsion. But this immediately went to consideration of expulsion, and it was dealt with in regular order as though it was a simple motion that needed an up or down
yeah.
vote. So, how do you call that due process,
This
right?
was not a well considered action. It was put forth. There was even question about whether or not it was factually based. Did they really? Uh, uh, did
Call,
did they somehow?
disrupt the
Yeah,
process. Did they disrupt a
right.
process?
Disrupt the process, or
Uh,
did they
yeah.
cause a breach in decorum? I mean, I thought, well, maybe you could say, let's tap them on the wrist and let's go on from there. But no, it became personal fast, and only because the Republicans.
They should have just peed. They should have just peed on a couple of seats.
Well, that would have been
That would
that would have been
that
disruptive.
would have been symbolically
Yeah, that
expressive,
would have been disruptive.
and there would be a basis for them retaining their
Yeah,
seats.
because it's there. Well,
They might even get a promotion. They might even move up in the administration because it's
yeah.
happened.
Well, the thing is, the only reason why the Republicans acted the way they did is because they could. Because when you have a super majority, you can get away with anything. And you know, Democrats know it happens the other way too. I don't know if there's a check against a supermajority like there. I mean, California has a supermajority with Democrats,
Mhm.
and it's why a lot of Republicans bail out or become more moderate, like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
But California has a supermajority of one party after having set up an
Mm,
right anti gerrymandering process, both by the adoption of
mm,
law, which was if I can recall it properly, it was an initiative, which means it went before the general voting population.
yeah,
It got overwhelming approval. They set up a committee. I still have problems with the structure of that committee,
yeah,
but at least it was an anti gerrymandering move.
right,
Um, so we got a super majority of one party because that's the way that's the way the people
yeah.
voted.
I have my own problems with initiatives, ballot initiatives that bypass the
Me too.
legislature.
Oh, they're abused
Yeah,
like
because
crazy ever since
yeah, I,
you know. But see, the legislature uses the initiative to bypass itself.
right.
When the people think that they want to know whether or not uh, the ideas that they want or the policy that they want to pass
Mm,
will get voter approval,
mm,
and they know that if it is going to be conflicted, that a good way to test it is just to have a group outside of the legislature form a political position statement and then go ahead and get the requisite number of
yeah.
signatures so that it can appear on a ballot. And that's how all of these things have happened. And it was started by the right,
And then
okay,
abused by
with
everybody.
Proposition 30.
And then soon abused.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Then it was embraced by everyone.
Well,
Both the left and the right started using it.
yeah. This is how.
There have been one
Yeah.
more thing. They have been elections, especially midterm
Mm,
elections, where all of the state, no, well, not all, but most of the state ballot propositions were
mm.
initiatives. For example, 10 out of 12 of the ballot propositions were initiatives. So it looks like the legislature didn't
Yeah.
do
Wait, what kind of
anything.
work do they do?
But
Yeah.
people, yeah,
Well, but see,
exactly.
I like the fact that if you do it with your representative government, they're working, and the whole initiative process is just, as I said, it's a way to circumvent real legislation, and because
That's right.
sometimes just because people
And avoid public
yeah,
argument. It's a way to avoid public
yeah,
argument.
or debate is really the
Yeah.
the the real word that
Well, debate if it's done by politicians.
right,
public argument when it's done by just a bunch of people who want to express their perspective on
Yeah.
things.
Well, that
And that's when it just becomes a money thing. It just becomes how much TV and radio time do you buy?
right, because it's not a debate anymore. It is
That's right. It's not a
bring
debate.
your money and my money to the table, and it's your ad versus my ad, and
Which is still one of the core issues, right, that affects all politics in the United States of America that has not been addressed with any
oh yeah,
seriousness.
money and you know, campaign ads, campaign
Yep.
finance in general, which is
So we've got a Supreme Court that made it possible to for states to have sickly and obviously unfair gerrymandering, as well as dark money
yeah.
contributions. We don't even know who the sources are.
Well, that's true. Uh, I just think that what we saw in Tennessee yesterday will be a new tactic that if you are in the right kind of state, a supermajority state,
Yes, exactly.
a red
Yep,
state, supermajority
you're
state,
going to get expelled.
this
Yep,
is the way it's going to happen to quiet opposition, to silence voices,
right.
to,
So then the question becomes, what's the next step? Okay, for the people who are expelled, what are the remedies?
well, another lawsuit I get.
That's one
Here,
remedy. Yes, go to the
here's the
courts.
ironic thing with Tennessee, because you go back to until a special election is set up to replace those who were expelled, Justin Justin Jones and Justin Pearson,
Jones, the two
two
Justins. Yeah,
justices. Uh, until that's set up, the local councils can appoint a replacement, and so far, overwhelmingly, the calls have been coming into the Metropolitan Commission at in Nashville saying they want Justin Jones, uh, put back in office in as an interim, and chances are he will be because
right.
there's indications that yeah he'll be nominated and seconded as the interim to his old job, and then he'll have to run
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
which is only
yeah.
shows the ridiculousness of this the
Sure. There's going to have to be two of
yeah
those one for Pearson as
yeah,
well.
and so it just shows you
Yeah,
how the self-righteously obstructionist and wasteful unchristian
yeah.
theocrats are dragging down
Are
our
you going to leave
politics.
out? Are you going to leave out arrogant and stupid?
Well, arrogant and stupid, that's kind of assumed there. Self-righteously
No,
obstructionist, okay.
you can't assume. You got to come out and call it what
Well,
it
I
is. I mean, that the speaker was just
yeah,
unbelievably
yeah.
arrogant.
Oh, he
You
was.
know,
Yeah, the speaker was bad. I wanted to.
and he wants to be governor. I mean, this guy is got gubernatorial
Yeah,
dreams.
well, I mean, look at the people who Tennessee is backing these days. Marsha Blackburn was one of the worst during the impeachment.
Oh
She
man,
was,
every time she opens her mouth,
yeah,
I speed through. I speed through my
she's a
recordings.
little more civil than Marjorie Taylor Greene, but not by much. Not by much. And so,
Yeah,
really, I mean, I've got to think that today on Good Friday, the theocratic right they're thinking Good Friday thoughts today, but that's because yesterday, Good Thursday, was not a good Thursday for American democracy. I mean,
they may pretend to have theocratic uh,
yeah.
philosophy, but they're belie that.
Well, very unchristian like, yes, yes, very unchristian like,
Right.
and but it was
They don't even wait for the seventh day to be over. I
no,
mean,
no.
they just you praise God and then you go out and commit hell.
I
you
mean,
know,
while we're in the whole religiosity of the moment, I mean, the metaphor of the week, it really was a political crucifixion, you know.
ooh,
And we got the three robbers, the
ouch,
two
ouch.
robbers and the big guy. But actually, it wasn't three. They let the white woman go, the 60-year-old white woman,
Yes, Miss
former
Johnson.
teacher,
And
Gloria John.
she and they asked her, why do you
Yeah,
think
I
that
mean,
happened? She said, my skin color.
Yeah,
He was rather straightforward.
yeah. But what's funny is that then the next step is then to ask the House leaders in Tennessee, well, did you consider ethnicity? And they say, no, we didn't consider ethnicity. And,
Yeah, no, how dare
yeah,
you?
and you know they
How
did.
dare you
Yeah,
suggest?
and they didn't consider ethnicity because how many of them really?
Okay.
How many of them even thought?
I wanted to see one of them say, "Oh, is he
No,
black?"
yeah, but no, no. That's not the thing.
The other guy's black and Filipino.
Yeah,
Really? I didn't
but here's the
notice.
thing. This is why they didn't consider ethnicity because no one ever considered the Asian American part, the Filipino part of Justin Jones.
Right, there
I
you
mean,
go.
they just didn't. I mean, if anyone,
Well, I think you raised the secondary
yeah.
question, right? Secondary question is, does the Filipino community, okay, choose to identify with Justin Jones? I mean, there's two levels of identification, right? One is he Filipino, and do you recognize his Filipino ness? And then the other one is, what about his political and social philosophy? How do you feel
So
about
if you
that?
don't get along with that, you just say, forget it. He's out on his own. He's on an island. No,
No, you take the Kumar position, right? The Kumar position is you just have to,
yeah,
assimilate.
the assimilate position. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that I, when I looked at Justin Jones. I have a cousin who is not black, but looks just like Justin Jones. Almost
Well,
dark.
his facial
Yeah,
structure is very
right. Very
Filipino.
and his skin color is just a little darker version of my Filipino-ness, but not black. I have other cousins who are, part black,
Quite dark,
and they
yeah.
were,
You meant, yeah, part
yeah,
black. Yeah, I got a lot of
yeah.
friends. Unfortunately, another one of the brothers passed away
Oh,
recently. I just heard, but yeah, I got a lot of
yeah.
friends.
I mean,
Half black family and beautiful sisters. In fact, they would always be on guard against the rest of us. And but they were black. They were musicians, and they were also surfers.
surfers.
So that was always interesting when we'd go out to beaches other than the local, Ocean Beach
Yeah,
or Pacifica. If we went to Marin a lot,
yeah.
and
So they would play
and
Wipeout,
surfed, and yeah,
Safaris.
well, we would do caravans. You'd see like 20 cars with a bunch of people of color, and some of them would pile out and jump on boards, and they look
Yeah.
black. So
And look,
and and the local white folks would freak out,
I've
man.
got cousins. I've got friends. There was a barber on Rockaway Beach. Remember Rockaway Beach? And
Sure,
remember that
Pacifica,
bar? There was a barber in Rockaway
yeah,
Beach, Uncle
sure.
Roque. That's what we called him.
Oh, no kidding.
He was he
Yeah,
was
I
half
kind of
black,
remember that. Yeah,
and and then
Was he on the east side of the road or on
once
the
you're
west
coming
side of the
down,
road,
he was
right
on
by
the
the
ocean
beach?
side. He was on the,
Yeah, that's what
yeah,
I thought. Yeah, I remember
yeah.
that.
I
I remember
then
that.
I had.
That was when there was nothing there.
Oh
At
yeah,
Rockaway
you should have
Beach,
bought.
there
You should
was
have bought
nothing
land then.
there. Yeah, that's
60
right. There
years
was
ago.
nothing. You could park right on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, look, the point is the Asian black connection, goes way back, from the first time Filipinos arrived in earnest, in large numbers in the 20s. And the communities are strong and they're there. And the story behind Justin Jones is his mother is our age. So his mother was born here. His mother was not the immigrant. The mother was his mother's mother. Grandma was the immigrant. She came here. And
Right.
it's his mother who was
Well, that
working.
all makes sense, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
all makes sense. If he was born in Oakland
yeah,
and he went to, I think, a Hercules High School, so if that's a Filipino pattern
yeah.
right
And
there
his mother was a nurse,
in the suburban
right?
pattern. Yeah,
His
yeah.
mother was a
There,
nurse, and
how Filipino is all of that, right? That's
yeah. And so when I saw him speaking from the well of the house, on cable, I was just so surprised. I said he, and then I saw his hair, right,
Mhm.
and his hair is black, not super straight, but wavy,
Yeah.
and it was that Filipino black, and it was also, you just knew that he had to have Filipino in him. And
Mhm.
and then, it turns out that a friend of mine,
Or
I'm
something akin to that. Something
yeah, well, I'm sure,
biologically akin to Filipino.
I'm sure you probably know Lenny Strobel. You know Lenny Strobel, or heard
Very good
the
friend.
name?
Professor Lenny Strobel recently also retired
Yeah,
from Sonoma State.
yeah, Lenny Strobel,
Well
connect,
published. Uh,
right?
you
She
know,
she met with Justin Jones about 4 or 5 years ago, and Justin Jones sought her out, called her Ate, which means big sister, and
right, right.
Justin Jones learned about his Filipino-ness through Lenny Strobel.
Yeah,
And
well, yeah. She paired him up with other black Filipino friends of hers and colleagues
yeah, and so,
because they're quite a lot.
oh yeah,
Janet Stickman is in Marin County,
yeah,
and she's a poet and an excellent writer, and she teaches at community college. She's of a younger generation now. She could be our daughter.
yeah, yeah.
She's yeah.
Well, I was just, like I said, once I got the verification, then, uh, imagine this. I talked to some people who are Asian Americans, and they're pretty well, uh, they're very pretty knowledgeable about current events, about what's happening. But I swear, most of them just had this thing about, oh, something's happening in Tennessee. They got some black activists, or three activists. Two of them were black, one, white female. It wasn't like considered a big thing. And even today, I asked some of them, I said, did you know that Justin Jones is half Filipino? And there was none. There was no recognition of that in the Asian American community.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think that shows how invisible we are to our own group, or there just is no curiosity. There's no feeling that, I mean, if you buy into the whole BIPOC idea, Black, Indigenous, Person of Color community idea, you got to at least be curious about how we are connected in some way. And when you see someone like Justin Jones, and you see him and you say, he looks like me, or he looks like relatives I have, uh, that's got to spark a kind of interest. And also, it makes you understand how that easily could be you, what's happening to Justin Jones. And that, Asian Americans, you're not immune to this kind of treatment. Well, we know that. Instinctively, we should know that. But I think we forget.
Well, there's the broad community, and I'm talking about any and all Asian American Pacific Islander communities. There's the broader community, and then there's the engaged community. The community of not just left activists, but any activists, right? Any people who try to stay informed
Yeah.
and who act accordingly. They're regularly engaged in conversation about social, political, and economic issues, uh, and that differs. The level of that engagement, the degree of that engagement, differs among and between different ethnic groups.
Right.
South Asians have been here in numbers, fewer numbers than Filipinos.
Mhm.
Some have been here almost as long as Filipinos, but Filipinos have been here a long
A long
time,
time.
and more than 100 years,
And
obviously,
they don't
and I
engage.
mean, not so obviously to everybody
Yeah.
else. Yeah,
They don't engage. And a lot of it is because,
it's a cultural thing. We don't engage,
yeah,
and many of us think in assimilationist terms.
yeah. Like Dr. Kumar.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of Filipino doctors that would think the same way.
Go along, get along.
They're more engaged in doing mimicry of white culture. Okay, if you've ever noticed,
The white facsimile.
yeah, yeah, some so engaged, right, that they have levels of expectation about acceptance beyond tolerance, right?
Yeah.
and they have levels of entry
Hmm.
into what used to be the most sheltered, right, and protected and exclusive of
Well,
uh,
and
of white society. You know.
this is how you get people like Dr. Kumar, who confronts Justin Jones on the floor of the State House yesterday. And it's the reason why you get people like Clarence Thomas
Yeah.
and Nikki Haley. And you get
Yeah.
people like uh, that guy, the guy running for president, uh, Ash Kumar, you know, Raviswamy Ashkumar, I believe his name is. You know, the
Right.
younger
Right. Yeah.
Ivy
Yeah.
League Republican who is pro-Trump all the way. And you know, what do you say to them? You know, it's a personal choice, but do you call them? I mean, do you call what do you call them? You call them. I mean, there are bad words to call them. You know, bad phrases. You call them. You call them sellouts. Do you call them like?
They're, you know what they are? They are the ultimate pragmatists. They want to identify with what they see as a potentially winning party, a winning situation, and the error of their ways is in not being able to understand that Trump is not a winner. You know, he has never really won an election.
Yeah.
He won the electoral college,
Mhm.
okay, but he lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. So that's the first time around. He lost by more than 7 million votes the second time around. So
Yeah.
he has never really won an election, but he's won via the electoral college, right?
Yeah.
In terms of popular vote, he's never won. Okay, so why did people see him as a winner? Because they want to tie themselves to the ostensible, or let's say the preferred, right, values of the conservative party, allegedly conservative party. At this point in time, even the center of the political center of the Republican Party is extreme,
Yeah.
extreme to the right. You know, the book banning is a pretty damn good illustration of that extremity, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
the standard is for book banning. Okay, you can halfway understand the standard because they feel that the tradition of gender identification, right, is
Yeah.
threatened, right? Remember when the issue of same-sex marriage was up, and before the majority of Americans accepted that as you know, as something that was fair
Mhm.
and equitable, even if they didn't particularly favor homosexual relationships or homosexuality
Well,
itself.
you know what?
But
Eventually, one that
what was the argument? You know, that this destroys American
yeah,
families. And I asked openly in class, would someone please explain to me how same gender marriage destroys American families? I got no
yeah. Well,
response.
you know what?
And I knew that there were people there who were against it,
Yeah, but
but they couldn't explain
what
themselves.
eventually won the argument uh, to make to make it all inclusive was when the other side, the people who were against it, had to realize that their own families were same sex members, that their own
Yes.
families were had this. If it was an infection, their families were infected by the same thing, you know,
Yeah.
and they had to
Yeah.
humbly acknowledge that this was just a human condition.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think I think a lot of people were shocked when Mr. Cheney came out, right?
Cheney, and then here in
They
California, you
thought,
had Pete
yeah,
Knight, who was behind
yeah.
the anti-marriage thing
No, that's
from
right. That's
Central
right.
California, and Pete Knight had to acknowledge, oh yeah, I got family members who are same sex, and so it's just untenable to stand up against it when you know that it's a very natural, very human thing, and eventually it will happen in all the other things that we disagree on. That people have to realize, oh yeah, there are times when yeah, I am that way, or that I have I can see that point of view, but you stay rigid, you stay intransigent, and you keep the political argument alive, forever, or as long as you can, and or as long as the money holds out, right? Because it's about money.
Right.
It's about how much you want to fight it, and it's funny though. I don't know. I think from yesterday's example in Tennessee, I think there's reason to be hopeful. You see two eloquent, uh, uh, you know, black and Filipino and black, you know, young leaders. I guess they're Gen Xers, huh? Are they millennials?
Uh, I think they're
20.
Xers. They might be
Justin
millennials.
Jones is 27. Justin Pearson is 28.
I
Going on 29.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I no, those are. Isn't that younger than
I think
millennials?
that I
Yeah,
think that's got to be Gen Zs.
yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
Z. I think it's Z.
So
It's like the other congressman, first term congressman from Florida. He's a Z.
yeah, and this has got to be encouraging when you see younger people say, uh, "This is how we define, political action. This is how we." And I saw it clearly when because I'm closer to age to Kamar in the state house of Tennessee, Doc Kamar, than I am to Justin Jones.
I am exactly the same age as
Yeah, and
Kumar.
I, but I see more. I'm more in tune with Justin Jones, but it's almost it was like daddy or granddaddy talking to his offspring, saying
Sure.
admonishing him for, hey, why aren't you like this? Why aren't be
Right.
this way, right?
Well, that's and that's understandable, and it's a whole lot better than crazy
Yeah,
uncle. You
it
know.
is. But
You
this
know.
is what's happening in our community. These are real discussions.
Yeah, we got them both. We got the older generation that is assimilationist oriented. We were raised on that, and a lot of recent immigrants do not accept the fact that many of our parents raised us to be assimilated.
Mm,
Okay, they didn't think in terms of the concept
yeah,
assimilation. They thought in terms of avoiding accent problems. So we can try to avoid an accent problem by you speaking English exclusively and us not forcing you to speak our home
right,
languages, our
right.
original
It
languages.
wasn't political. It was a way to get along.
No, it was
Yeah,
cultural.
and
It was cultural. It was political in the sense that they understood there was
mhm,
racism, and that one aspect of that would cause people to express racist and intolerant attitudes was whether or not you had an accent. And so many families didn't want their kids to have
yeah.
accents. You
Yeah,
know,
and yet, so when I hear Philippine language, I don't hear it in terms of, oh, this is the Tagalog dialect or the Ilocano dialect, which I know there are different words, but I hear it in terms of, this is the Tagalog accent, and this is the
okay,
Ilocano accent, and that's
sure.
what I hear. And
What gives it away for you? The rolling of
the
the
ours,
R's?
no, it's just a
You roll the R's, you roll the R's like there's no tomorrow.
no, it's
Yeah, Mike, I have an elder, very much beloved cousin who's also a
ours.
nurse.
Oh yeah.
But as she
Yeah.
ages, she's recovering her
Oh,
accent. When she was younger, barely had an accent, and she went through her
she didn't
life
lose it.
with a very, very moderate,
Yeah.
if at all, detectable accent. But as she ages, the accent's coming back, and I said, "You're gonna start talking like my dad
Yeah.
in a minute,"
Yeah.
But,
Well, it's funny.
yeah,
Justin Jones does not have an accent, but he does have a kind of lilt in his voice. Kind of like,
he
yes,
does, he does. But that is an East Bay preacher lilt. I call that the
it
preacher lilt.
sounded.
I mean, he and Pearson, man, when they started talking, I said,
Yeah,
okay.
it is. It was very preachy.
these are some talented dudes, man, and I know exactly where that cultural expression, that style
Yeah,
comes from,
it
you know.
comes from
So
church.
it
Comes
sure
from
do.
church. And so, look,
Yeah, it does.
I think they have been like Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, is flying to Nashville to meet with them and other Democratic legislators there, and I think this elevates these two young guys. They
Hey,
become the voice of the young, and I think
yeah,
if
yeah.
there's going to be a Democratic challenge to the Senate, I think you're going to see it from these two guys in Tennessee challenging the white Republicans.
That's possible. They could jump right past Congress, lower house, the House of
Yeah,
Representatives, and jump right to Senate and challenge Marcia
yeah,
Blackburn.
yeah,
That would be so
yeah. Well,
cool.
it would be. I mean, look,
I'd be throwing money at him.
I think that
And,
what what the what the Tennessee State House debacle did, it may have enlivened the Republicans who said, "Oh, now we have this new tactic." But I think it also told Democrats, "Hey, this is the horizon. This is why you can't give up hope because this is the future coming up." And you saw
oh, for
the
sure,
young people.
thousands
Yeah,
of kids. Look what happened. After the mass shooting in
yeah,
Florida. They organized the March for Life, and those people made it into office. They ran for political office. They're running on a local basis. They're running. There's one that made it into Congress. Then the recent shootings in
yeah,
Michigan. What happens? People are saying I survived.
yeah.
Two mass shootings. One when I was in high school, and then another one now. That I'm in
Yeah.
college. So
And then Uvalde.
yo,
That's a
God.
challenge in Texas. But I think what we're seeing is the evolution of gun rights as an issue. I think the more shootings we have, it's got to take that next step to where it becomes like abortion. It becomes the other hot button. And I think those two, more so than say affirmative action,
Oh yeah, certainly.
immigration is right up there, but those two, guns and abortion,
Yeah,
uh, I think
absolutely,
that's where
absolutely.
we're heading. So anyway,
This, if you'll notice from you can see my
yes,
background,
those are
but
crocodiles, right, behind you.
it's my collection of AR and M16 rifles, and it's a tribute. Okay, these are all non-working, all right, but they're a tribute to the great state of Tennessee,
Ah, these are
and
relics, non functioning relics that you're displaying.
yep,
Yeah,
which is what should happen to all of the ARs out
yeah.
there. But unfortunately, there's manufacturers now who are putting out even cheaper
Mm.
versions, American-made
Well, you know,
versions.
capitalism will find a way. They'll make it cheaper. They'll make it more plentiful. They'll find a way to make it more attractive so that people will. They'll make it cheaper, right? So that people will buy them and use them.
More
Yeah,
accessible,
and there's
and then you have the wonderful laws,
right.
open
Oh yeah.
carry,
Well,
loaded open carry,
boy,
man. How can you tell? Be a cop for me in this for a
yeah,
second,
yeah,
right? Be a police officer, right? Uh, on the street, anywhere in Tennessee and in Florida, and tell me what the problem
yeah,
is like when you got open loaded
yeah,
carry. Well, and then you have concealed carry, no permit.
yeah.
They just signed that one in a private signing ceremony
Concealed
with
carry.
no public participation.
Concealed carry, no permit. That means like if I'm hiding it, it's okay.
It's
It's
okay.
okay.
It's okay.
Wow,
It's
that's
okay.
worse than open. You'd want to, fair warning if someone's coming in and guns not ablazing, just holding them. That's at least you're on notice that this guy's a danger and you can walk the other way. But if it's concealed carry, no permit,
So what happens if Disney World says no weapons, and I'm sure they have that
Boy,
rule, okay, and then you got a bunch of concealed carry types walk up and say, hey,
well, look, I always freak out at concealed carry laws. I mean, and they have concealed concealed carry is the law on campuses in these places. I mean,
yeah,
that's the
that's
scary
right.
thing about Texas. Uh, yeah.
Uh,
Anyway,
well, you have your favorite cities in Texas because you've
yeah,
lived there. But I mean, I cannot. I don't want to call you out on it because
yeah,
it's a different time now.
yeah.
But
Well, it is. I mean, I lived in Texas about almost 50 years ago. Almost 50 years. I mean, it's changed. It was a little more tolerable, I think, back then. I mean, Willie Nelson was a young man, still considered a hero. Now he's like, I don't know, Willie Nelson. I mean, he's still sort of a hero, but doesn't have the same kind of sway. But it was a lot mellower back then, 40, 50 years ago in Texas, than it is now. I'll say that. All right, so let's put Tennessee to bed. Let's hope that by Monday Justin Jones gets his job back, at least on an interim basis. But what a waste of time.
Well, I hope Mr.
Oh,
Pearson gets the
I hope
same
Mr. I
treatment.
just don't know what the council and what his local council will say. They were talking to the Nashville council, and they were all for Justin Jones being seconded as the interim. But we'll have to see. All right, so
Okay, I just put all the guns away.
oh, okay,
So
yeah, there they go. You sneezed them away. Uh, so all right, let's talk about it. It started out as a kind of strange week with Donald Trump. I mean, I've talked about it most of the week. Uh,
is there? Would you explain whether any week with Donald Trump in it is not
yeah.
strange?
Well, I just think that just wait. There will be other things, not New York, but other things with the Florida documents case, other things with the
Sure,
Georgia
sure.
case, and you get worked up about New York and about whether out the DA Alvin Bragg has connected all the dots. There was a question. Oh, he
Yeah.
doesn't have. He said during the press conference, I don't have to tell you everything in this indictment. What do you want me to do? Like expose myself? I mean, all the analysts were saying, God, he seems kind of weak here. He seems kind of, and they just don't, he doesn't want to show everything. I mean, it's a strategy, but in the end, it keeps them guessing, and it's probably a better legal strategy than not. So I think, Al- right,
Well, the revived rape
yeah,
case
oh yeah,
I think that starts this
yeah.
coming week. Yeah,
You're
next week.
talking about the writer. I forget her name right now, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, oh,
But yeah, they lifted the limit, the statutory
statutory of the
uh,
statute of
hole.
limits,
Yeah, statute
statute
of limitations. Yes, statute
astute.
of
So,
limitations.
yeah, God, E. Jean Carroll, that's her name.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. So I just think that there's this, or
Donald Trump's Donald Trump's defense. Remember his defense? She's not my
oh
type.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a strange case because it has to do with
Oh my
they were
god.
in I think they were in some kind of dressing room or something.
Well, she was in the dressing room, and then he just decided he'd walk in on her, which is a practice that all of the Miss Universe
Yeah.
and beauty contests, beauty pageants, they all said the same thing. Yeah, the guy walks around
I mean,
in the
well,
dressing
as
area.
in showbiz, people are just dressing all, quick change kind of thing. But most people
Yeah,
most people are kind of cool about like, luring or leering, not luring, leering at
yeah,
people,
yeah,
and they respect privacy. But if you think you own the whole thing, and if you think you're privileged, you will go a little further. And I think Donald Trump might have. So we'll see what happens in that case. But look, it's not a good look. I think the real question with, Alvin Bragg's, 34 felony counts, a lot of people saying, oh, well, they're just really actual misdemeanors, but they've got to be supercharged.
No, man. Tax evasion ain't a misdemeanor. You file false documents, that's instantly a
So,
felony.
all right. So that, and
Okay.
that's the thing that needs to come out, that it's not, uh, they're always talking about, well, we need to see the link that turns these low level felonies, because that's what they're called. They may not be misdemeanors per se, but they're low level felonies. And there's, the rap has been, Bragg has to show that there's something that supercharges these things and makes them, you know, real felonies that'll put Donald Trump away for a long time. And I don't necessarily buy that, but when legal people say that, it makes me wonder that is that the way a judge is going to think? I don't know, but I think I said this the other day. I like the way my friend Lawrence O'Donnell thinks. He says, "Look, you don't have to worry about the standard of guilty until proven innocent, or innocent until proven guilty." Sorry,
Yeah.
you don't
Yes.
you don't
Yes,
have to
Emil.
worry about innocent until proven guilty unless you're serving on the jury.
I think unfortunately, you've been researching so much that you're getting a fascist contact
Ah,
high. You
you
got
know,
to be careful. You got
here's
to
the
be
thing.
careful when you're playing with this
Here's the
stuff.
thing, though. We've been talking about Tennessee. Did I mention fascism once?
You said you got
No, but
close.
see, this
You
is the
went
thing.
with authoritarian. You went with
A lot of
authoritarian.
people are saying, "Hey, this is fascism. This is junior fascism." But it's like it's one of those slippery slopes. The slippery slope of fascism. You start with the F, A, and then it's like all the other letters fall in.
It depends on whether and how much of government is engaged in the authoritarian
Mm,
behavior. When you have a combination of at least two elements of government, right, in a tripartite system, you have two systems, two portions of that governmental structure engaged in the same authoritarian activity, and it's supported by the capitalist structure, by the
yeah.
economic structure. Then you have engaged. You are engaging in
Well,
fascism.
that's the
So
kind of thing when you see uh, Biden come close to the middle, you
right.
see how they're kind of in lockstep defending, like when the banks failed, right? They were all
Uh huh.
defending. The government was defending the banks and bailing them
Yep.
out, and you see that the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats weren't that great. And you take that,
No, on economic issues, yeah,
and
they're not very distant at
you
all.
take that into some other areas, and you say, "Wow, we're in lockstep, and it could be a kind of a junior fascism." So I just think that when you start talking about, I mean, a lot of people throwing the F word, fascism, around for the Tennessee. I didn't do it yet. I mean, I could see where you shut down democracy. Yeah, that's a bad look. But I think we don't.
Well, luckily there wasn't any violence, so that the police didn't have to crack
Yeah,
down.
they're still pretty scary.
There were no arrests, right? And so I always
Yeah,
worry that there could be provocateurs, right? That come into the situation and create enough threat of violence or actual violence that the police have a
yeah.
rationale
But
to
how? But
act.
here's one thing that I also did not mention, but a lot of commentators did. They made some kind of, and it's usually the right wing commentators who are making the connection between the peaceful youthful protesters in Tennessee with the insurrectionists in
Yeah,
Washington.
that's right. Yeah, the
I mean,
speaker himself also did that outright.
yeah, I think that's crazy,
Yeah.
and that, and so I
Well, I love it. I love it though. I want them to continue to do that. I
yeah,
want them to continue to promote their zealous support of Trump. I want them to continue to make what, if you really understand the law and the political structure,
mm,
really inane statements.
yeah,
I want Jim Jordan to continue to think that he's impressing people as a political pit bull
mm,
when he's got no power. whatsoever.
Well,
His
it keeps
subpoena
him,
power ain't going to work. You
makes
know.
him look busy. Makes him look busy. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't.
Don't you wish he'd put a jacket on every once in a while? I mean, he's still
Well,
doing
I
his
don't mind
shirtless
the
thing. You know,
jacket.
that's his trade. That's his trade name.
That's his trade yet. His trademark.
That's
All
his
right. So look.
logo.
All right. So let's put Trump to bed because
No, no, no. You do that.
the next step.
I don't want to
The next step isn't going
be
to be
anywhere near his bed. Yeah,
the next step isn't going to be until
you might catch
December.
something, dude. Careful.
Okay, right. It's not going to be till December, and frankly, I don't. There's so much that can happen between now and December. I do. Do you think he's?
Oh
You
yeah,
think he's going to? All right. So the larger question is, do you think he's going to end up as the Republican? Yeah.
nominee. Yes, I do.
Mm,
It's not just about him. It's about who's strong enough on the, in the field,
mm,
so to speak.
yeah.
Who's strong enough with the base that they might be able to challenge him.
And
And everybody keeps saying this thing. It really disturbs me when Democrats and so-called journalists, who are trying to do a journalism thing, right? And they say, well, yeah, he's got it, in the bag and all the rest of that stuff, and the Democrats got nobody. When there's nobody challenging Biden, he hasn't announced yet, all that kind of stuff, and it just makes everybody look weak.
well,
It really does.
so
You
a
know?
lot of people don't want Biden, apparently, according to some polls.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I would prefer. Personally, I would prefer someone else. But do I recognize that he's done a good job given the
Oh,
situation
sure.
that he was elected into? Hell
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
hell
All right.
yeah.
How about this? Kamala Harris has gone off to Tennessee today.
Hmm.
Does she
Sure.
rise or does she fall?
Uh, you know, she could rise for a while, but when the scrutiny of investigative journalism uh, turns a brighter light, sharply focused on her, she's going to have issues.
What?
There's going to be problems.
You think? I mean, what do you know? I mean, you don't know that, but I mean, you don't. You're just saying that they'll probably find something.
Why did they have three or four aides have really short terms with her and then
Well,
leave?
I mean,
We're talking about not just aides, but even chiefs of staff, right? At least in two instances.
so
That was early on. That was early on in the administration. I think there's some stability there now. But what happened there?
well, I don't think that there was anything untoward, as they say. I think that there was just, maybe. Uh, I don't know. I can't explain it, but I don't know if that's enough
Well,
to
but
make.
but you remember what they did to Hillary,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they took her apart, and it wasn't just the emails, right? There were all kinds of dirt
Yeah, but notice
that
how
was flung
Trump
around.
mentioned the emails this week
Right, right.
during his speech at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, that's he just wants to remind people. Remember the emails. Remember the
Yeah.
emails.
Okay. And all I got to do when to respond to him is classified documents.
Yeah,
Classified
yeah,
documents. I got to do top secret classified
yeah.
documents.
Well, it's funny that he pretty much just admitted that he had them. You know.
He said I'm supposed to
Yeah,
have them.
yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
president.
So,
It's okay. What are they doing? I can declassify them if I want to.
yeah. So I
Okay.
just don't.
He said absolute right. When he says that kind of
Like,
absolute right as president,
so
absolute right.
maybe the question is when are Republicans going to get like savvy and say this is not a guy who's fit to be president? When are they going to at least be as smart as George Conway and say, "No,
Another
another
half
half
Filipino.
Filipino guy"? Yeah, George.
Yeah, there's all these Filipinos, man. Between her from Vallejo,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
we
we
got
get the Filipino detector out. And my God, everyone's got Filipino.
oh my God,
Everyone's got.
there's so many of them all over the place. But most of the time we're in
Yeah.
showbiz,
Well,
right? Nicole
you
Scherzinger.
say, yeah, or you say everyone's got a little Filipino in them, like,
Hey,
yeah, like
Bruno
Bruno
Mars,
Mars,
man.
or Kellyanne Conway had a little Filipino.
Yeah, Kelly. Oh no.
I know he's a
That's
big Filipino. I don't know, but he's but he's an. Look,
oh man.
I'm
keep it above the
I'm
belt,
pro
please.
George Conway. I'm pro George Conway.
Yeah, I am. I am too.
I mean,
I think.
he's Republican, but I'm pro George Conway.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's a former. I think he sees himself as former.
Former. I don't think. I think he's still conservative. Still
Oh, he is, but he's not. I don't think he's
a
a
Republican.
former. I don't think he's an active Republican Party
Yeah.
member
Well,
any
maybe
longer.
he's. Well, when are these? As Donald Trump called them, rhinos. When are they going to take
Right?
over and do something for the party, for the Republican
They
Party?
can't. They're stuck. They can't. They're
Yeah,
stuck.
that's
They're absolutely stuck.
yeah. All right. So,
Even if they have constituencies that are not as overwhelmingly Trump favorable.
mhm,
It's a national race, right? And so uh, you may count on votes from your locals
mhm.
and understand that they're not all that solidly behind Trump. But what about the money? Where you got to get money from on a national basis. You got to get the big donors. So that's what you got to look at. And so, my opinion, when really big donors just come out and say, "I'm not supporting this guy,"
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. All right.
uh, really big
That
names.
that. Well, look, that's a good segue into our last topic. Our last.
Clarence,
Well,
is it going to
you
be Clarence?
mentioned donors and big donors, big
Yeah,
mega donors.
yeah, yeah.
Harlan Crow, you know,
Harlan Crow,
millions of dollars
big time.
to the Clarence Thomas Freeloader Justice Fund. I mean, can you? I mean, when they ProPublica did everyone a service by putting this out, and it even benefited other investigative reporters who had nothing to do with this story. That because ProPublica did it, it gave them a way to talk about it on the different cable channels, and they had to profusely mention ProPublica because it was their work.
Yep,
Congratulations to
yep,
ProPublica for 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 ferreting out all the information that showed that Justice Clarence Thomas for decades has been on the receiving end of hundreds of thousands of dollars of luxury trips to Indonesia, to Europe, to I mean, and not just once or twice. Really, these trips have happened almost annually, maybe more than that. And one trip they pointed out would have cost an average person $500,000. Just
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
you know, that's that's like one third the value of my freaking
Oh yeah,
home. And it's like, you know,
I know.
you know,
500,000 just to rent the plane, just to do all the things that you need to do. That the oh Harlan Crow Harlan Crow owned the yacht.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
but
Yeah.
no. So these ridiculous things. So and yet, what do you think, Dan? Clarence Thomas came out with.
Impeach,
Well,
impeach.
wait. He came out
Uh,
with a statement today saying, I asked people before if I had to disclose any of this. They said no, and I've just that
Where did he get that advice?
that's what. Yeah,
Where the hell did he get that advice? The only problem is this is neither called an ethical breach, neither is it a crime,
right.
right? So that's the problem. That's the problem. That there is nothing that sets a standard,
Mm,
right? He's supposed to report it. That's all.
mm,
And so there's no, okay. In law school, you learn sine pena,
mm.
okay, without punishment, nullum crimen. There is no crime. So you may not like the fact that he was getting all of these favors, that big time value,
Mm.
and it looks
Yeah.
corrupt. But if there's no penalty, there's no crime.
So he gets away with it. Is that it?
Yes, he gets away with it unless you get the Democrats win back the lower house, and they do two things, right? They go ahead and impeach him. They start the impeachment process, and that, of course, means investigation. And he's loud too. Remember how loud he was when he was nominated?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he
And
he
and
doesn't he doesn't say much. Here's his statement. He says this is why he didn't disclose these trips. He said, first of all, he said He was told that, quote, he didn't have to disclose it. He says that he and his wife, Ginny, well-known conservative activists, were longtime friends with Crow, and this is what he said. He said, early in my tenure at the court, I sought guidance from my colleagues and others in the judiciary and was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who do not have business before the court was not reportable. I have endeavored to follow that counsel throughout my tenure and have always sought to comply with the disclosure guidelines. And
Okay, I want to hear from Roberts.
Roberts has said in the past that he's bothered by a lot of this stuff. So I guess,
Yeah, what the hell does that mean? How are you going to act, Mister?
well, that's the thing. Now he's
Justice
got to
Roberts?
now he's got to respond. I mean, I think he was responding to a couple other things that came up in the past with Thomas, but
Oh, you know what cracked me up is when Alito and
uh,
Roberts bemoaned the fact that the Supreme Court is held in such low esteem by the general
oh
public.
sure,
They were saying, "Oh, woe is
oh
me,
sure.
woe is me. People don't like
Well, all right.
us."
Well, that's the thing. I guess this has got to drive that impression
Hell
even
yes,
lower.
and the Democrats should take advantage of it. They ought to make up for the fact they were asleep at the wheel for like 24
The
years.
Democrats, yes, the Democrats.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
well, all right. How about this? Is there a way?
How about what Nixon did? How did Nixon, engage the liberal court, right? Because it was a liberal court even under Frankfurter,
Right,
even after Earl Warren, right?
right,
It was the liberal court. How did he engage it? He got the youngest up until that time, the youngest nominee, which was Mr.
yeah.
Rehnquist, right? And Rehnquist stayed on, became Chief Justice, and actually he was rather
Right.
rational
Well, see,
as the
that was
Chief
the thing about
Justice.
all those older conservative justices. They became more liberal as some of them became more liberal as they aged.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't call him liberal, but he was definitely
More
moderate. He was
reasonable,
he was
more reasonable, and
yeah, he was a swing vote a lot of
right.
times.
And I guess maybe we'll see that from Roberts yet, but I don't know. I still see it as a solid 6-3 on all the issues that are important to most progressives and Democrats.
Yep,
Solid 6-3,
yep.
and so also
Impeach him. You get win the lower house back, hold the Senate, and impeach him.
let's
Right.
all right. Let's see if that works. I don't know. I mean, what got me in this ProPublica article is that Clarence Thomas he does see himself as a man of the people. Preferring to go to Walmart parking lots and RV parks rather than these fancy beaches, foreign places. He's a regular guy. He flies coach. He flies coach because you can get your pubic hair in the Coke can anywhere. First class.
I knew you were going to get there. He drinks Coke. He drinks Coca Cola. I knew you were going to
Okay,
get
all
there.
right.
Okay, I got all kind of jokes about that, but
Okay, all right. So we talked about
some of them are on the verge of racism, so I'm going to keep
we
going.
talked about Clarence Thomas. We talked about Donald Trump. We talked about Justin Jones. We talked about his Filipino-ness. Thank goodness. But people still don't acknowledge us. But I think it's good that he acknowledges his Filipino-ness. That's good. And people should say now. Should people say, "Hey, Justin Jones, half black, half Filipino"? I mean, why don't the reporters say that as opposed to just saying he's black? It's almost like the Tiger Woods thing, even though we know his mother is Thai. We know Tiger Woods' mother is Thai. And I guess as we speak, I don't know if Tiger's doing really good and well in the Masters this weekend or on this day. He wasn't doing so great yesterday. But, he's the other example of the Asian black connection. And hardly anyone mentions his Asianness, although we all know he is because of his mother. He's Asian, but everyone calls him black.
Yeah, well, all of the I was only watching primarily
Hmm.
PBS and
They all call him black. They all call Justin Jones black.
Democracy Now. No, they yeah, PBS did, and I thought that was strange. MSNBC pointed said he's black and
Right.
Filipino.
I saw that yesterday, and
So
I applauded Alex Wagner because she rarely acknowledges her own Asianness. You
Hmm.
know, she's not Filipino. She's Burmese, I think. Her mother.
It's half
Yeah.
Burmese, and yeah, but she ended up looking Filipino.
Yeah.
So
I,
everybody makes that
but,
mistake. I mean, she looks stone
yeah.
Filipino.
Well, she does, but she's half Burmese. And like I said, so when I heard her say that, I checked and found it in the Washington Post, and they mentioned it, and it's
That's
in
right.
all his campaign documents. And I saw some other writings. So shouldn't the media just call him outright Filipino black or
Right.
black
Right.
and Filipino?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, they're going to favor the black side, so they're going to say black Filipino. You say African
Yeah, but
American
they don't say
Filipino, black
Filipino at all
Filipino.
now. They should say black.
Yeah. Yeah, the other most of the other, yeah, media don't.
All right, so this is the push. The push now is to call it to say black and Filipino.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we too bad my dear friend Henry Furman, the man who got AP to change uh, the internment to incarceration. You know, we need him to. We could have used his influence to change the AP style on ethnicity. You know, call him black and Filipino. Don't call him
Hmm.
just black. But we had this
Well,
problem with Tiger, so it's going to take.
well, Harris,
Oh, we
uh,
had this problem with
being
Harris.
chosen as vice president, yeah, and they talk about it. They talk about, they refer to her as
Mm,
black and Asian Indian, but they don't do it consistently.
mm. Well,
They don't do it consistently.
I mean, it really is sad because you know, like when Harris got elected, they all mentioned, you know, she's half black, half you know, Asian. She's Indian. Her mother's Indian. I think this is going to need a closer look at how we deal with biracial people, right? Fastest growing,
Oh yeah,
fastest growing group. I mean,
oh yeah,
people get stuck. I mean, they didn't know how to deal with Obama, who's biracial, who, who
yeah.
preferred to be called black, even though he was really half white.
Well, part of the problem was that early on, when he first announced that he was going to run, he was being criticized as not black
Oh
enough.
yeah. Well, that's true.
You know,
He gets, yeah,
which fed right into the he's not even American,
right.
argument that was coming
Oh,
from the far
this
right.
is going to keep us race advocates going for a while because I mean
You know,
they're going to, you know, you get into the biracial category and that opens up this can of worms and people are going to say,
that's right,
who are you? Are you really even American? Are you do
right,
you even belong here?
right, right.
I mean that's going to happen.
It
It's
does,
it's
it
good.
does. But we've got people in good places. Our friend Mr. Vargas is on the board of trustees for the CSU system now.
Oh, he's
You
really
know,
on the he's on the
yeah, he's on the board of trustees. He's. I have to check and see, how that's working. I have had an occasion to meet with the the current president of the
yeah,
trustees,
yeah.
but she's wonderful. I really was impressed
Well,
by her
you
a
know,
lot.
did you
But
see that? I mean, I wrote about this on the Aldef blog about, you know, when I talked about Harvard and I talked about, you know, because Harvard put out its acceptances and the class is now 30%. The freshman class 2027 is 29.9%. I'm sure if they looked, they'd find that extra half percent to make it 30% Asian. But I they had something in the New York Times that allowed you to pick your college based on your values, and you can put down my value is I want to be in a good job after graduation, or I want to a school that has a good reputation academically, or I want a good party school, or I want a school that has good diversity, racial and economic, and you could put all these things. You can slide your value you know, on the scale, and then punch up your school. And guess what my number one school? Have I talked to you about that? Guess what my number one school was?
no, Oh, yeah, you did talk
Yeah.
about it, but I forgot.
UCLA was number one for
Okay.
me, and Kevin McCarthy's alma mater, Cal State Bakersfield, was number 30. And here's the kicker: Harvard, 235.
200. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Who wants to go to Harvard? Oh no, I'd
Yeah,
rather go to Cal.
a whole lot of Chinese particularly want to go to Harvard.
I'd rather go to Cal State Bakersfield. Yeah.
It'd really be interesting. Has anybody ever done any kind of research on what happens to the lives of Chinese Americans and Asian Americans after they graduate from Harvard and
Well,
they got that card that they can pull and
yeah.
say
Well, I'll
Harvard.
tell you what I don't know if they've done it specifically for Asian Americans, but in each class they have these longitudinal studies that I've been a part of, and it shows if people are happy or what they've done, and it would be interesting to go and see what the Asian Americans are doing or how they're doing, because mine would go back 50 years, and we know that Harvard didn't contribute to my happiness. You know, I mean, happiness contributed to my happiness, but not necessarily Harvard. Actually, Harvard contributed a lot of anxiety. Um, but to be totally honest, though, given the choice between number 30 in my value scale, Cal State Bakersfield, and number 235, Harvard, would I go to Harvard? Would I choose Harvard? I don't think it's close, but it just goes to show you that how difficult it is, to turn down something like if a Harvard avails itself. But even though it probably isn't the best place for you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh, I try to encourage people whose kids want to go to the Ivy League schools. I go, there's a lot of things that are more important than just that label. But you know,
yeah,
it's a
I mean,
status thing. It's a label, right? It's a status thing, and
I
and in in your case, did you research the departments that you might be interested in?
no, but I checked out the people who went to Harvard and if I liked them or not.
Okay.
So if they went to Harvard, I liked them. If they didn't go to Harvard, So the people I liked, and I like poets like E. E. Cummings. I said, did E. E. Cummings, where did he go to school? Harvard. He went to Harvard. I like Norman Mailer, the writer Norman. Where did he go to? He went to Harvard.
Crazy Norm.
Uh,
That is one of the iconic New
yeah,
Yorkers, man.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was staying right there in the village, and he was like more Greenwich Village and East Village, but I was there in the East Village when I was just there in New York, and so I had that feeling of grunge. Well, he saw himself as the white. He called himself the white Negro, if you recall.
we have a we have a term for that, but we can't
He
use it
was
on the
kind of
air.
yeah, he was, yeah. Anyway, that was the 50s and 60s,
That's what he liked to see himself
early
as. Yeah,
50s and 60s. Anyway,
he was
and now,
he was a little punch drunk. He was a little punch drunk too, man, because he liked to box all
yeah,
the way into his later
but
years.
I talked to I talked to his I talked to people who knew him, and one of them came to my show, and the show that I did two. One was I played like the British Raj Dak Kumar. I played a character like him, but in my own one man show, I talk about my Harvard experience, and it's funny that this guy who I remember from college, I invited him. He came. Afterwards, he said he was ashamed. He felt ashamed that when we were in school, he did not have the curiosity to even want to figure out what I was about or what my life was about. And it wasn't relevant to him. He didn't care, in other words. He was ashamed that he lacked the empathy and the curiosity. And that's one of the problems with affirmative action if it's not implemented in a way that has some guidance for everyone involved. Beneficiaries, the people who are in the class with you, as well as recipients, people who get in, who are qualified, but they need to be eased into a new environment. It's because, to me, when I went to Harvard, it really was like going to the moon, right? I mean, it's like nothing. I mean, everything was different. It was a different world, right? I mean,
Yeah.
here is one simple, stupid example. But you go to the cafeteria, the dining room. Uh, you know, I we were too poor to have orange juice for breakfast, right? We rarely had it. It was just like we had Tang. That was a special occasion. But you go to the dining hall, and I would sit next to the orange juice dispenser because I could have all the orange juice I could drink. And that was like, oh my God, I get all the orange. It seems kind of stupid and silly now, but that's how new and different an environment this was. And, you know, I this is what happens when you're a poor kid from San Francisco who goes to a place like that and you're not really told how to ease in. You're just like there. And, no one is saying, hey, I'm interested in your life. I'm interested in what you're about. You know, I wasn't saying I'm interested in what you're about, Mr. White, Anglo, legacy, three generations, went to Harvard, you know, and, maybe it was to my credit that they just assumed that I was just like them. And what kind of assumption is that? So, anyway,
I don't know, dude. Yeah. Yeah. It depends. If we're racially different um, from the majority of Harvard alumni, I can't. There has to be always a question as to where your background, your class background. There always has to be
class
an
is
issue.
important. And a lot of people have been trying to bring back that idea of class, like where you are class wise, rich or poor, middle class, such that exists anymore in American life. But I always come back and say, race is still important because no matter how much money you have, you can stand on your money and you're still not as tall as the richest man, the richest white man. And so, how can you discount race as a factor? Race
Yeah.
race is always a factor. I mean, look at all the black athletes who were gifted and well paid, but then something happened to them in the law. Like I remember one time something happened to Joe Morgan, the Giants baseball player, the famous Major League Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And no matter how much notoriety, how much fame, no matter how much money he made, he still wasn't as equal as in the eyes of certain people who are white. And so, how can you tell me the class is what it's all about? It's not. It's always a little more delicate, a little more difficult. Anyway, hey, so Dan, happy Easter. I mean, we're coming out of Good
We're coming.
Friday.
Yeah, we're coming out of that. We're out of the.
We
They're
got
they're taking Christ down from the cross at this point.
right, and
Uh, you know,
at
I always
least
I always had a problem with the nuns, talking about that in that way because first of all, choosing the dates for Good Friday and Easter week and all that was something administrative,
yeah,
rather than absolutely historical. And then talking about taking Jesus being taken down from the cross is all symbolic. And when I was a kid, I'd be thinking, but this happened like 2,000 years ago, and how do you know that it was at this time? He was saying after the cross, and then we're in a different time zone.
Oh yeah, three
I was
hours.
thinking about all those things. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that was like, you know, if it's 12 o'clock now, in the West Coast, well, you've already killed them in the East Coast.
yeah, yeah,
How does that work?
yeah.
So anyway, yeah. Well, I have I think you always have a soft spot in your heart for religion. But all you have to do is go back to the show I did this week where I talked about the Baltimore diocese and the report
Uh-huh.
on priests and um, their wayward ways in terms of abuse. I mean, scandalous. Baltimore Sun on Tuesday or Wednesday. Scandalous report. And it makes you understand that, hey, the church, it's almost, I don't know how they get out of the financial hole that their sins have dug for them, for church leaders. It's just
Well,
not,
what they've been doing is dioceses have been bankrupting.
yeah, bankrupt,
Dioceses
right.
have been, yeah,
And every church is on its own. Every parish is on its own as its own little entity because that's the only way they can protect it. The ongoing daily church from getting sued. But I just don't see how they can recover. I think the church is in trouble, and I don't know what the answer is, except you got to do something about female priests or the lack of female priests. Maybe you got to do something about celibacy. Maybe that'll be an
right.
answer. Um, Maybe you got to go Vatican III, to save the church. Which is,
I think all of those are good suggestions. I think all of those are valid suggestions.
yeah. I mean, I know too many good Catholics who have left the church and gone to, I know a woman who has become an Episcopal minister,
Sure.
uh, and I would gladly, join her church. She's on the East Coast, but
Yeah, I know a lot of people have chosen to affiliate with local Protestant churches. There's more of a sense of community in those churches.
well,
Slightly smaller population,
mm,
very local.
mm,
So that people know each other and they identify thoroughly with the geographic community around them.
yeah,
Uh,
that is the thing
yeah,
about church, because church is a sense of coming together.
it is community.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I have to admit that, like maybe 20 years ago, I guess it was about 20 years ago, I was part of a parish council. We built a building, we built a parking lot, and I really felt like that was
you're part of the
yeah.
community.
And
Yeah,
then we moved, and I
right.
we just haven't found anything quite like that. And part of the reason why I got involved is because the parish administrator was a female. She couldn't say mass, but she was a female. It was run by and led by a female, and that was and the team between her and the parish vicar, who was an Irish priest. It was really an unbeatable combination. It was a great parish when we were in the East Bay, and I just haven't found anything like that, quite like that, anywhere. And
It's harder now because a lot of the middle to older age, senior aged priests
oh
were ordained during the conservative
oh,
administrations of two prior
yeah,
popes. So the attitude of the church, especially on the issues that you mentioned
mm,
earlier, women as priests,
yeah, that's not good.
celibacy, etc. It
Yeah,
hardened
but
up.
look, I don't see the young priests, adopting that kind of. I see them being more conservative, if anything.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
the
saying.
younger priests are more conservative,
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're talking about the. I was talking
Yeah,
about the older
you're
middle
saying
aged priests, but
the older ones
yeah,
are dying out.
younger priests more conservative. I think you almost have to be. You're right. I wasn't thinking about it
Yeah.
that way, but I think
Well,
you're right.
it's funny. It's like the people who want to be priests now, and they've got to be more conservative. Yeah, they just
Yeah.
have to be, and it's almost
Yeah.
like they're girding up for siege mentality. This is the way we are. This is the church, and I find that the people who are making more sense are the ones who are more open, a lot more liberal about what a church could be. What a healed or a healing church could be. But right now, the Catholics don't make sense to me. I mean, I am, and the pandemic didn't help either. So I,
Yeah. Abortion and same sex marriage.
oh
That
yeah,
that did it.
I
You
forgot
know.
the big,
And
yeah.
that's
That's,
so. There's the Catholic Church saw itself in the same um, grouping or categories as the far
yeah.
right.
It's
Uh,
painful because
because-
this is a Filipino thing. Catholic Church very important. Hard to quit it. Hard to quit. I mean, me to the Catholic Church is like a lot of Republicans are to Trump. Hard to quit it. Hard. It's hard to
Ew.
quit it.
Yeah, that's pretty severe comparison, but
But
yeah,
I mean, I'm not. Yeah, and that's because the conservative church really is the church. I mean, they're I don't see very many liberal
yeah,
strains of the church that can really
sure,
consolidate
right.
and unify.
When Pope Francis was
Mm.
voted up, there were a whole lot of people who were really critical, and then remember his
Yeah.
first year when he started talking about
Oh yeah. He tried.
not just same sex marriage but homosexuality, just that, and
He's tried to. I mean, I think he's tried all he can. Now he's like got to worry about him like lasting. Got to worry about his health.
right,
But I know I like the Pope. I still like the Pope. I still like Francis. But it's hard. It's hard to be Catholic in 2023.
yeah, it
So
is.
but it's not hard to be spiritual. It's not hard to be good. It's not hard to be a good.
It is a challenge to be Christ-like,
Mm,
but but is something that you can do, even if it only in incremental ways. Uh, Christ was about love and forgiveness and doing for others, especially those who are poor
yeah. I and
or
I yeah.
sick.
I think that I think what it's boiled down to, because the church has been so bad organizationally, uh, you know, institutionally.
Hmm.
I think it's become a kind of a personal thing now.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been much more of a personal relationship between God and church, or God, if God equals church. Although
Yeah.
church really is kind of community, so it's like that's kind of tough. That's
You
kind of,
know, I
but
think it depends on the parish, but a lot of the suburban and the parishes that are away from the big city, the parishes in the big city are really huge. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and there's very frequently an ethnic element
yeah.
within the parishes, and so you can tell that certain groups go to the 9 o'clock mass, and others go to the 11 o'clock mass,
Right.
or whatever, you
Hey,
know, and it becomes a cultural thing,
yeah.
Yeah.
Out where I am, there is a Filipino mass at the 4 o'clock mass. That is the Filipino mass. A 4 o'clock mass. Imagine that. How many times?
On Sunday, a four
Yeah,
o'clock mass on Sunday. Wow.
yeah. They got a 4 o'clock mass. It's a and then another parish has a Spanish mass at 7 o'clock. And then there's one mass that all the pedophiles go.
Oh, God, Jesus. Oh my God. Please forgive him, Jesus. Oh my God.
No, 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 no. It wasn't a pedophile mass, but it was the Latin mass. There was a Latin mass at 6:30 at
Sure,
one church.
sure. That's the people.
Actually, I went to the Latin mass a couple times. I actually liked it. I mean, it was like I kept thinking about, because I saw Miles Davis play in person in the 70s, and he would turn his back to the audience. And
Right.
this is what the Latin mass is. The priest has his back to the audience and he's doing
Yeah.
his thing.
Well, but that was Miles' equivalent of Satchmo uh,
Yeah.
having the handkerchief over his fingers,
Ah,
so you couldn't see.
but
You
he
know,
was also, yeah, the not you couldn't see the fingerings.
that's right.
He was just giving you the middle finger all the time. So, that's why that handkerchief was used. Oh, yeah, he's throwing the handkerchief around. You can't see the fingers. Hey, so Dan, so look, have a great Easter. And now we go into this period where God is dead, right? Or God dies. And
Well, God's son,
in
yes.
in the Buddhist tradition, the Tibetan Buddhism, we enter into a phase after death, before rebirth. It's called the Bardo, right? So you see
Hmm.
how in a lot of different religions, there's a lot of similarities, between death and dying and rebirth, or regeneration or resurrection. So I get Saturday's kind of quiet, right? Saturday's
Yep.
quiet, reflection,
Friday afternoon and all through Saturday.
and then
So,
and then
and isn't it opening day?
today they're opening
Oh
on
yeah,
the
today's
9th.
opening
They're
day.
opening
Yeah, yeah.
today, and don't even know what they're doing. But how about this? Uh, have you ever been to Easter Vigil Mass? Ever been to that one?
Oh sure. Yeah.
That's the 8 o'clock mass, and
Yeah.
like if you don't know, there's no Easter midnight mass. You got to go at 8, and it lasts for hours
That's right.
because.
And I actually served that
Oh, you
mess.
did? Oh, yeah. I
Oh yeah.
I I went to some of them on purpose and some of them by mistake. Easter.
It was so long.
Yeah, it's like a 4 hour
It was
mass.
even worse than midnight mass, on Christmas. It was so long that one of the candle bearers passed out.
Oh, it's
And we had to make sure that one, it didn't start a fire, and two, we had to carry him back. Two of us had to lift the guy
you
and
got
bring him back to the
to going.
sacristy.
Get them going again. Yeah.
Dude, because you're wearing three articles of clothing
Yes. Yeah.
over the cassock,
Look,
right?
I was I was an altar. I went to public school, but I was an altar boy. I was an altar boy. Did you have knee pads?
You could get them, but I didn't have
Oh,
them. You didn't want to be a ninny.
yeah. No, yeah. I'm sorry.
They called you another name, and it had more to do with women's genitalia than anything
Oh,
else.
yeah.
But yeah, you
No,
know,
no, no. I enjoyed my day as an altar boy. In fact, that's how they get you. If you're an altar boy and you enjoy the whole thing, they say, "Oh, priest material,
yeah,
great
right,
priest material,"
sure.
and you can
My
say,
my mother had me go to the seminary seminars.
"Yeah, priest
So you have
material."
a mini retreat, and you get hosted by St. Joe's down on the peninsula.
Yeah, yeah. See, and you could
Yeah.
tell I was priest material because I said that joke about the pedophile mass. Hey, oh yeah, that's priest material. That's he's priest material. That amused.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dan.
Yeah, no, no. I kind of knew. I wasn't sure, but I kind of knew that I wasn't priest material when they,
Uh,
when
well,
they
yeah,
put us on that.
celibacy.
But
That's the big C. The big C. So
well, yeah. I would ask people, how did you? I would ask my favorite nuns, who are really cool, and they
favorite
said it's a
nuns.
calling. It's a calling. You can. There's a calling, and I said, yeah. Well, do you hear the voice of God? Do you just feel something? They said, yeah, it's a combination of both intellect and emotion, and it leads to a commitment
Danny,
and the whole process of being educated.
Danny,
Uh,
Danny,
yes, ma'am.
Danny.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
calling you, Danny. Danny,
This is
I'm calling you.
this is this is Jesus, and
Well, look,
I think you'd look good in a habit.
yeah, See, no, we joke about this, but there was no real pressure on my my family's part to become a priest, but There, they indoctrinated us. Oh man, that Baltimore Catechism.
Sure.
Drill in the answers. Memorize the answers. Uh,
Yeah, but it was more about doctrine than the Bible.
yeah, right. It was all.
Protestants grow up with both the doctrine and the Bible, but we grow up with the doctrine and the missile.
Yeah, yeah,
And the missile gets redundant every 3 years, right?
right. Well,
It's the same stuff.
but they gave us selected verse.
That exactly,
You don't have to read the whole thing.
exactly,
Just selected verses.
exactly.
Father,
Yeah,
forgive
yeah,
them. They know not what they do.
yeah,
It-
yeah,
it's
yeah. Well, I think the best stuff. Yeah, that was
yeah.
about forgiveness, but the best stuff I thought was the Beatitudes.
Oh, the
With the loaves of that was pretty much it. I mean, if you just look at the 8 Beatitudes, you've got it.
you got it.
That's how to be
The
Christ-like.
cliff
That really is.
cliff notes. The cliff notes. That's it. Well, look, we got to wrap up a Holy Week talking a little about religion because, even no matter how distant you are from the church or how you think you may have strayed, you haven't strayed all that much. I mean, if you still hold a certain or still harbor a certain amount of hope and attitude and, I mean, there's still, you never, it never is totally out of your system. There's still a,
Sure.
there's reverence.
It's a basic value scale. There's a basic value scale, that helps you to navigate right from wrong. And we it's built into us,
Mm.
and it's not a bad thing. That aspect of religion is not a bad
Yeah,
thing.
I'm Donald Trump could have used some.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what cracks me up again about the far right. They say, no, okay, no, but he got us judges, and he's anti, abortion, and he's anti
yeah.
LGBTQ and all
Well,
that
that's the
stuff.
thing. Yeah,
So he's our guy.
yeah. How do you?
And I said, yeah, but he's an amoral.
Yeah,
How do you know he's amoral? I said, well, look at all of the stuff that's in the public
yeah,
eye. But they'll fake news all that. It's really easy for them. They just dismiss it all as
yeah,
fake
yeah.
news.
Saint,
I said, yeah, what if he says it himself?
Saint, Saint
That
Stormy, Saint Stormy.
when it comes out of his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of debating on whether or not it would be hip to like buy into some of her merch
Oh,
and give it away as birthday gifts and maybe Christmas
I don't
presents.
know. I just
Some some stormy merch, man. I, I think I'm gonna check it out as soon as we're
yeah.
done.
Hey, all
Go
right. If I
online,
get something for
see if Amazon is featuring some stormy.
if I get something for Christmas, all right. All right. So,
Yeah, yeah,
look, it's good that we talk a little about spirituality as we go into Easter. So, Dan, we talked about Justin Jones. We should have a Filipino detector at at these kind of events or at public events, so we know who we're talking about, and maybe we should make sure that I'm gonna see how many times people mention that Justin Jones is Filipino and black. They should, they need to, and I think if more people do that, don't you think that's a positive thing that makes Filipinos and Asian Americans at least more aware that hey, we're part of this, right?
yeah. We're present, and we're present in a politically active
Yeah,
way. Okay, that I think that's what's
yeah.
important. There have been others. What's his name, Scott, who's also half Filipino, but
Scott.
but
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Scott from Virginia.
yeah, and then
Bobby Scott. Bobby Scott.
yeah, Bobby Scott, and well, there's a couple of Scotts, and one of them's a Republican, the other
Oh,
guy's a
Tim
Democrat. But
Scott. Tim Scott's in the Senate.
yep,
Bobby Scott is the House in Virginia
House of
representing.
Reps, but also Chief
Oh,
Justice, not Chief Justice, Justice
Thurgood Marshall.
Thurgood Marshall's family. Yeah, very active
Yeah,
on the East Coast and in the DC area.
yeah. We should.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think sometimes people just lose sight of that. That there was always a strong connection, despite the
right,
fact, and that this is the irony. Blacks and Filipinos were have always been sort of both in love and out of love. You know,
sure,
extremely racist and extremely loving at the same time. We're
right.
kind of like
Well, most of the I think most of the racism came from the Filipinos towards blacks, don't
Oh
you? I
yeah,
mean,
I
there
think
there,
you're right. I think it's sort of like Romeo.
there was a reference to that concerning Justin Jones and his perspective and his experience, because somewhere, I think in the introduction to the article about Lenny's
Yeah,
Lenny Strobel's relationship with him, that he was he had asked about the kind of treatment that he was getting or that he witnessed, while he was
he
growing
was.
up, that
Yeah,
was coming from the Filipino
he was
community.
primarily getting. Uh, he was getting the anti-black Filipino um, thing, and he also saw himself as black. I mean, it doesn't help if everyone sees you as black, you know, and
Right.
if they call you black, then you're black. And then if you're getting negative vibes from many of the Filipinos. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, yeah, all the Filipinos were like in love with the fact that he's Filipino. Some were and some weren't. I mean,
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
right.
I had my father had friends of his, the Monong generation, some who were involved with black women, and I had an Aunt Hazel who was this big woman who would like come and hug me and smother me, and it was always fun to be hugged by Uncle Tony's Aunt Hazel. But you know, uh, it was sort of like that was a good thing, but then you'd hear family members and others speak ill about other African Americans. You know,
Yeah. In
yeah,
general.
in general, and it was
Sure.
so.
Sure. When when after the Brown case in '54,
Mm,
when there was more civil rights activism, because now they had a legal precedent that they could move on, from the civil rights movement. I would hear all kinds of racist
yeah.
stuff coming from Filipinos towards blacks. The biggest one was, "Why can't they just work hard like us?"
Ah,
So that's an assimilationist attitude, right?
assimilate.
If you just work hard, they're going to respect you.
See, I had forgotten about the assimilationist attitude that was prevalent in our community then. I mean, I shouldn't have because it's clear, but I went back east this time, and I told my story, and one guy I went to college with said, "Emil, how do you feel about assimilationist theory? How do you feel about?" I mean, he was consistent, and it wasn't because he had too many beers. He just wanted to know. I said, "Well, my feeling is that you are who you are. You don't like lose yourself. I mean, it's sort of like the tossed salad idea versus the melting, right?
The old,
Right. I mean, you've heard the
yeah.
tossed salad metaphor. We're all just, we're
Yeah.
the croutons
It's
and the
it's not an
top.
amount. We're not an amalgam. The society is not an amalgam.
Right.
It's an association of different elements, right?
Right. It's yeah. So and
A
each
salad,
one,
a salad
each
bowl.
one unique. Yeah. So I know
Mhm.
that's always been my view. It's always been the metaphor that worked for me when I first heard it. Must have been in the '80s. I still think, but so when you talk,
Yeah, for me, it was more like mixed
yeah,
nuts.
oh yeah, oh, who's the cashew? Oh, who's the Brazil?
Yeah, 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 and then you could cheat a little bit with trail mix and M and
Yeah,
M's,
yeah. Well,
But
look, I got to admit, there's got to be a little bit of uniqueness, the distinctive flavor. It's not just all like blended in, but uh, this is good. This has been the fight of our lives, right? This has been the fight.
sure. I mean, 50 years ago, America had just started understanding what a burrito
Mm,
was. You know,
yeah.
there were hardly any restaurants, right?
Mm,
Yeah, I think when I got my first burrito, I think there were only two or three Mexican
right.
restaurants, in the city,
Yeah.
and and two of them had something to do with
Yeah.
Lighthouse, right?
El Faro.
The yeah, El
Yeah.
Faro. But yeah, well, there you go with your knowledge of the Spanish language. But anyway,
Yeah.
you
No, no,
know,
you're right
no,
though. The burrito.
tú entiendes español. But anyway,
No, when they took away the Gordo cartoon,
oh, bummer, man.
my Spanish language knowledge just went down.
I loved Gordo. I loved the remember the beatnik
Oh yeah,
spider?
I
He was the
love
coolest,
Gordo.
man.
Gordo.
He was really
Gus
cool.
Ariel.
Anyway, we gotta
All
go. We
right,
gotta
so
go, man. We said we were gonna be on for an hour, and it's almost
oh,
it's approaching two
all right,
hours at this
listen,
point.
Dan. Happy
Happy
Easter to
Easter,
you, and
and to the family, of
same here.
course,
And
and
look, and we'll connect again. Uh,
we will
and
definitely.
so there he goes, Daniel Phil Gonzalez. Happy Easter to him. College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. My friend, my pal. There he goes, and we really didn't mean to talk this long, but but we had to talk about Justin Jones and then Donald Trump and then Clarence Tom. It's been a week. What a holy week. It actually has been anything but holy. It's been tough for democracy, and I hope that that was clear from our conversation. Hey, check it out. I'll put it on amok.com. You can listen to it from the beginning. Also, get it from the beginning on our YouTube chapter or YouTube channel at Emil Amok 1 on YouTube. Also on Facebook, fb.com/EmilGuillermo.media. Also on Twitter. If you like to watch it on Twitter, please at Emil Amok. I think every time Justin Jones is mentioned, they should say, and Black and Filipino activist Justin Jones. They should. They shouldn't just call him Black, assume he's Black. That's not right. How can you just assume he's Black? You say, oh, African American and Black activist Justin Jones. Okay. All right. So check out all the places where you can listen or watch to this podcast. I don't put it on the regular podcast things because I don't know. I just make it more exclusive this way, and so you can watch it live too. Anyway, I thank you for watching, listening. Regular listeners know that I like to end with a little meditation. It's true. It's all about love. It's all about love. Send it out to others first. And it comes back twofold, threefold, especially during these holy times. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be great. And may you live with ease. Something like that. Hey, Emil Guillermo here. Have a nice holiday. Until next time. Mahal.